First of all, for inviting me today. Actually, he didn't invite me today for today. He invited me back in June, July, if I would like to speak at the first one. I said, you know what, Paul? I have a seminal point in my life, a milestone coming up in my life of 20 years of being a Toastmaster, and that's in January. So this January, I've served 20 years in Toastmasters. I can't remember how many meetings I've missed, unless it's been because I've been away on holiday or something like that, but I've been to most meetings for all the clubs I've attended. Now, I know that there are some people in this room who surpassed me in that 20 years. Kit is one, Gary is another. Anybody else past 20 in here? No? So, yep, hi there. So, and then there's a number of them do 20 and number 10. The fact of the matter is, most of the people in this room have been serving for a long period of time. And one of the questions that we're often asked is, well, why do you do it? Why do you continue to come to Toastmasters? Well, I'm going to tell you part of why I do today. Now, earlier when Paul was referring to me, he said, I met Derrick 3 years ago when I did a speech on something about doing sports mentoring for little kids. And that sport was baseball, because I'm an American. The big chunks of what I'm going to be sharing today are from that speech, because that experience was such an important, life-changing, transformative moment in my life. And it happened to coincide with the leadership development that I was experiencing at Toastmasters. So when you ask me why I stay at Toastmasters, it's because Toastmasters affords me, and you, an opportunity to continue to develop and learn life skills that continue to transform your life. Wherever you go, whatever you do, there's going to be something that you can tag back into your Toastmasters experience and go, I remember that. And where did I get that from? Something related to Toastmasters. So let me go back 20 years. 20 years, I walked into the front door of the city administration building in Colorado Springs based upon an article that I'd read in a magazine that talked about Toastmasters. First time I sat down there. Within 2 weeks, I was hooked. I had become a member. And within about a month, they were tapping me on the shoulder and say, hey, Derrick, how would you like to be vice president of membership? And I said, okay, sure, why not? You need one? I'll be happy to step up. Have I learned since then that ability to say yes to things transforms everything after that? You say yes to so many things that you may have never said before. Now, I went to Toastmasters thinking that what I really needed to develop was my communication skills, my public speaking skills. But what I discovered by saying yes at that moment in time, that what I really needed to get from Toastmasters was leadership development. And it would be a lifelong journey of developing that experience. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because shortly after I became vice president of membership, after that, they said, well, you've done this for a couple months. Our president's leaving. Why don't you be the president? So within 4 months, I went from a nobody to just sit in the seat for the first time to vice president of membership to president of a club. Shortly thereafter, that club of 13 or 14 that was struggling diminished down to about 7. So now I have a club that is dying, and I'm left trying to breathe life into it. On top of all that, I had just started a new job as a director of business development. I had started university again in the 40s to finish off my business degrees. And my life was full. Oh, by the way, I was married. I had 3 children, 11, 14, and 17. My daughter was learning how to drive. My son was in school, and my littlest one, 11, was getting ready to play baseball. And it was springtime, and spring tryouts were there. And this is the premise of the story. We went to the spring tryouts, and my son Devin went and he did the very best he could. All the boys and some girls were out there playing for the spring tryouts. This is the time when the Little League coaches all get together, and all these boys and girls are out in the field doing various activities. Hitting the ball, pitching the ball, stopping the ball, all the fundamentals of baseball. And then the coaches go, I want that one, I want that one, and I want that one, and that one. Now, if you've ever experienced childhood rejection where you've been on a team and you're the last one picked, you know how that feels. If you're one of those other ones who are like, they're always going to get picked first. Daryl's always going to get perked. Why is that? Because Daryl is Daryl. So if you're one of those, you'll just have to abide with me for just a second, because most people might feel that rejection at some point in time. So all the boys went through this training. All the kids were getting their coaches, and you can see them gathering around all over the field. And then there was this other little group that didn't have a coach. My son was one of those. And there was a number of other boys. The person who's organizing comes along and says, you know what, I'm really sorry. We don't have a coach for this team. Basically because nobody wanted these kids, right? So he said, if you can get somebody on the team here, if you can get some of the parents to step up and be a coach, then you can have a team. So that person went away and came back, and I said, okay, these kids, they need to play, they want to play, they come out to play, they put their hearts in it. Is there anybody who wants to be a coach? And somebody said, why, you'd be a good coach. Who, me? I've never coached baseball in my life. I hated it when I was a kid. I always got stuck in right field. No, you'd make a good coach. And all these little boys were looking up. These little 11-year-old boys look at me and go, yeah, I'll be your coach. I said yes again to another opportunity. I can't tell you. I'm going to try in the next bits of time that I have with you. Try to describe to you how transformative that season was to this man. It changed my life. I continue to get life lessons from that experience. So, what do? You've got a bunch of 11-year-old kids, and you've got to get them trained. Well, the first thing you do is you get them out in a field, and you find out what they can do. This is where we're going to see some parallels with Toastmasters. Vicki, this is where we hand out that flyer there. This is a picture, this is a diagram, if you would, of a baseball diamond. Now, if you've played rounders, this makes sense to you. If you haven't played rounders and you don't even know nothing about baseball, let me show you the orientation of how a baseball diamond works. It works like this. There is the front and there's the back. Okay, so hold it like this. That is the proper way of looking at a diamond, a baseball diamond. The reason why I've handed that out to you is because there's going to be some parallels that you're going to see in Toastmasters and life in relationship to the field. Consider this field that you're looking at, this baseball field, as a field of life or a field of navigating Toastmasters, because a lot of these things are going to be parallel. So I'm going to go through some of the positions in a little bit. But the first day that we got them out there, one of the things that you have to do is find out where the strengths and weaknesses are. In Toastmasters, we have something we do with that, don't we? It's called a icebreaker speech, where we find out what our new members are capable of. So here we had our first day and we're out there. So you're teaching them fundamentals. Oh, by the way, because I have never coached in my life and I know nothing about the rules of baseball, I had in my back pocket a handy-dandy little rule book for that year's official Little League Baseball. Because guess what? The last thing you want to do as a coach is get called out by another coach or an umpire and says, well, you can't do that. So I had to study that thing backwards and forwards and know everything there was about it. At the same time, too, I bought 3 stacks of books like that, trying to find out about how to hit the ball, how to catch the ball, how to coach little kids, how to do this, how to do that. In Toastmasters, we call that the Club Leadership Handbook. And the big stack of books that tells you all the other how-tos is the governing documents, the club constitution and bylaws, all that good stuff. They tell you the rules and regulations, the hows and how not tos to make sure you're playing the game correctly. The game of Toastmasters, if you will. We get them out there. So just some fundamental things. Some of the things you want to teach your boys is that ground balls are the nemesis of young men because they're a little bit awkward still. And a lot of times they go down like this, catch a ball, and you've got a whole lot of space in there for that ball to go by. When a ball goes by you, guess what? You lose time because you've got to chase that ball and then you've got to throw the ball back. So fundamental number one is stop the ball. Stop the ball. You got to stop the ball. Other fundamentals would be you got to catch the ball. So what are some fundamentals about catching the ball? Get under it and use both hands so you don't Drop the ball. Thank you very much. You don't drop the ball. Those are a couple things. So we practice that and practice that and practice that. Now, as a coach, some of you who have been in leadership positions before or are currently serving in various leadership positions, you're going to appreciate this. We are playing as a coach in both a defensive role and an offensive role. We want to score points in work, in Toastmasters, DCP, and various other things. We want to score points. But defensively as well, we need to do some compliance stuff. How many of you are working in an environment where compliance dictates a lot of what you do? If you're in anything with IT, big time. All right? So I know that. All right? So you have this compliance element of your life, and you have this other part where you're trying to score points. I want you to look for just a second. Think about this for just a second about defense. See, coaches, they go out there and they think defense. We got to stop the other team from making points. We got to stop them from getting points. That's the way they look at defense. I want to flip that around for you today. Defense is not the purpose of keeping the other people from scoring. It's from making the people on your team better. To make them better. If life is dishing you out stuff where you've got to have some kind of a defensive position for it, the reason why that exists is to make you better. If you're running into opposition, it's to make you better. If you run into compliance rules, it's to make you better. If you're running into rules, it's to make you better. It's to make you better. So when we're teaching these boys about winning a game, it's not about winning a game. It was about making them better. Does anybody have 11 or has had an 11-year-old boy or 11-year-old girl? At that particular moment in their life, they are struggling. They're going from primary school to some form of secondary school. They're going from little kid to kind of in between that and being a teenager. It's awkward. It's difficult. It's a growing pattern. It's mental changes. All kinds of stuff is happening in them. And what you got to do is make them better. Make them better. As your role as Toastmasters and as leaders in the club, that's part of your role as well. Help to make them better at whatever they came to do. So on the team that I had, we were going to make them better. Now let's talk about some of the positions. I'll talk about some of the various children that I had on my team. In the orientation of where I'm at, this is going to be the pitcher's mound. Paul back there is where the catcher is at. The distance is about 18 meters, just to put that in perspective. 60 feet or about 18 meters. Over here to my left, your right, is first base. Directly behind me is second base. Over here to my right, your left, is third base. Home plate is down there. That's where you score. All these other ones just move you around so you can get in a position so you can score. All right? In my team, after we've had an opportunity to assess everybody's skills, we put Daniel over on first base. Daniel's mom and dad came to me in the beginning and said, Daniel is a football player. Not football, but football player. Nose guard, big kid. He was meant to protect, or center. He was meant to protect the quarterback and kind of create interference. So he wasn't really mobile, right? He was a stocky, big kid. First base was perfect for him to be. Why? Because at first base, he could get a foot on the ground. If you got the ball to Daniel, he never missed it. He always caught it. And never went over his head. He always caught it. So as a batter, you want to get from home plate over here to first base as quickly as you possibly can. Because once you get on base, you now are in a position to score. If you can get moved around, you can score. You're on base. Your first speech, that icebreaker, is first base. That's the first place for them to get to their goals, your new members' goals, first base. Now, a rule of first base is this. If you hit the ball and it's in play, you have to run to first base. But you don't stop at first base. You touch the base and run through first base. Why? Because stopping at first base causes injury. It can cause an injury to the runner. It can cause injury to the first baseman. So the reason why you run through it is because you want to make sure that there's no injury and that they actually get credit for being there. Think of this like this in life. If you have a goal, if your first goal is first base, boy, I just want to get to first base. Touching the base is part of the goal. But winning, positioning yourself to go forward, you got to go past it. You got to go past your goal. You got to look beyond first base. Because first base is, guess what? First base! You want to get to second. You want to get to third. You want to get home. You can't stop at first base. So having your mentality, I want to go through first base. I'm going to go through first base. That's it. Our second basemen, Brad and Nate. Good team players, really positive. Brad would play catcher sometime. Nate was always either second base or he was shortstop. Okay, shortstop is the area right between second and third base on your diagram. And my son Devin played shortstop most of the time. So Nate and Brad, one of them would play. Now, what's the goal of? So second baseman has a couple of things that they've got to do. One is they've got to try to catch the person running from first base to second base out. The next other thing you have to do is that when a batter hits the ball way out to center field, they've got to relay that ball back from center field into the infield so they can stop the play moving along on the opposition. So it's a team play. It's a communication play. The ball goes from home base all the way over out to center field. Center field is chasing it. Second baseman runs up to fill the gap. Shortstop fills in for second base, so it's boom, 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 and they move in. The mistake a lot of boys make, and a lot of professional players, is they want to throw that ball all the way from center field, like all the way to home. That's a long way. Think about it. I got the ball way in this huge arch. How far can a runner who's really fast get around those plates when that ball is lagging up in the air in the hemisphere? When, if you have a relay, it's center field, second base, home plate. Center field, second place, home plate. Because you're relaying the ball. It goes faster, boom, boom, boom. And it gets done faster, and you can make a better play. Well, I'm on second base now. Nate and Brad are protecting me. By the way, I should mention, over there on first base, you have what's called a base coach. Right? That's that little black box next to the first baseman. The base coach, they will coach the batter on a couple of things. Like they might give signals. Okay, you want to walk this one. You want to, this person, the pitcher's going to pitch a fastball this time, or crowd the plate, or back off of the plate, or he's going to hit you. He gives signals that only the batter and the base coach know. And then when the batter is running towards the base, that first base coach will go, come on, you can do it, push it, push it, push it. And in Toastmasters, I gave it away. In Toastmasters, that first base coach is who? Mentor. Your mentor. Yeah, I know, I gave it away. Is your mentor. And that's they're there to coach you and encourage you to push it, to go for it. Just a little bit further, just a little bit faster, you'll get on base. On the other side of the field, you have a third base coach. So now I'm on second base. I'm behind the pitcher's mound. I'm on second base, and I am itching to go because I know the home plate is right up there. And the third base is right there. Now, my third baseman is Dustin. Dustin never missed the ball. Dustin was this tall, lanky kid who could reach out on either side, keep his foot on that plate, and he put out more kids on third base than anybody I ever had. So I kept him on third base. He was my third baseman. Always. If Dustin wasn't there, I was like, oh, we're in trouble. We don't have Dustin on third base. Because he was the last stop on keeping the other team from scoring. The last stop, Dustin. Love Dustin. Next to the third base, there was a third base coach. Again, as a coach, you're wearing two hats, defense and offense. So the third base coach, what's their goal? It's to look back at second base, look at the second baseman and say, or second base runner, and say, you know, look, it's too far out, you can go. It's going to be short, so don't stay where you're at. Or if it's forced, like somebody to get to first base, he has to move to third base, you're going to have to run all you can. So that third base coach is going to go, go, go. And if there's a fumble or if somebody's dropped the ball, that third base coach is going to do that. So he's going to go, go, go. That's run the base, run the base. Get as fast as you can around third base, touch it, and go home. We're going to score, we're going to score, we're going to score. We're that close. Again, the mentor. Could be a number of different people in your life. If you don't have first base coaches or first base coaches that help you to get to your first destination, your first goal, and or you don't have a third base coach who's there to say, you've only got this much more to go. Push it just that much more, and you're home. You'll score. You've achieved your goal. Get them, because they're invaluable. First base coach, third base coach. Now, the two internal field positions. You have a pitcher who stands on a mound, which, as I said, is about 18 meters, 60.6 feet away from the home plate. For an 11-year-old, they can pitch a ball at about 50 to 60 miles an hour. You know, think about that, 50 to 60 miles an hour. You don't get a lot of time to think as a batter on how much that is. Now, the eye-hand coordination of an 11-year-old isn't particularly good, so we had to work a lot with 11-year-olds in order to get them to hit this 60-mile-an-hour ball, which is about that big, with a bat that's about that round. Now, if you played rounders or you've played cricket, you know that's a tall order for an adult, let alone an 11-year-old. So by this time, we're looking at teaching these kids how to do it. In the beginning, when we're doing it, we move up a little bit, and the coaches lob the ball. We just lob it, make it easy. Why? Because we want them to hit it. We want them to practice what it feels like to make a connection with the ball. But then we bring in the other players who are aged. They're going to be doing what they're going to be doing. So they're pitching the ball. Now, my pitcher was Kevin. I had other pitchers because at 11 years old, you can't play one kid multiple games because you can't do it because there's rules against it. Why? Because it's an 11-year-old. You don't want to wreck an 11-year-old's shoulder when he's 11 years old. So you've got to make sure that you're protecting your players as well. I remember just as season was progressing and we were starting to win a lot of games, his mother said, why aren't you pitching Kevin this game? We're going to lose. And I go, and if we lose, we lose. But you know, other kids have to have an opportunity to play, and I'm protecting Kevin's arm. All the while I was having this conversation with her, I had a nice calm demeanor, and I had 22 eyes over here looking up at me, realizing this guy cares for us. He's watching out for us. He's watching out for all of us. Right? That's what it means to be a coach. We're watching out for our people. So, Dustin's on third base. We got a third base coach. We're on second base. They tell us to go in and go home. And the last role that I want to talk about is your catcher. Well, I'm going to talk about the outfield in just a second too. Is a catcher. So the catcher is, in my view, the person who has a view of the entire field. They're the ones who, when the ball is being pitched, gets down there to the ground and can tell where the ball is coming in and can tell the pitcher how to pitch the ball. They're the ones who see the people moving on things. So if somebody's trying to steal a base, snatch that ball and pass it to the base that they're trying to steal to. And they make the scores or they make the stops. In my opinion, the catcher is the equivalent of a club president. Because you should be seeing all of the play going on. Seeing the value of all of the different plays. Seeing the things that are coming out there. And it's your ability to see the entire field that enables you to be able to make good calls in action. As a club president, that's your job. To help the things to move along. Back to the pitcher for just a second. I don't like to think of the pitcher in this instance as a person. I want you to think of the pitcher as a circumstance, as a life condition, as an opportunity that is being delivered to you. Because as a pitcher, we get pitched things in life all of the time. If I said to you, name 3 people in your club right now that aren't able to come because of X, Y, or Z, you'd be able to do that probably times 2. Because life pitches us different things at different times, and we have to try different things to adjust to those events. Now, if we moved up at this level, at 11-year-olds, they're pitching the ball. I'm telling them, okay, all I want you to do is get it over the plate. You can speed up the ball, but no sliders, no drops, no fancy knuckle things. Why? Because you're going to hurt your elbow. And as I said earlier, you're 11 years old. I don't want you hurting your shoulder. I don't want you hurting your elbow. I don't want you hurting your wrist. You've got a long time playing ball. Don't hurt yourself at this age. Similarly to anything else you might have in life. Stick with the rules and stick with what your capacity is. However, as you go into adulthood as an adult player, those balls, the fastest baseball that's ever been pitched is 106 miles an hour. Do you realize that is a split second between the time that leaves that pitcher's hand to the time you've got to swing at it? 106 miles an hour. Hitting that ball takes an immense level of skills. Baseball is not about just hitting the ball. It's about getting on base. It's about advancing on base. Life is similar. It's not about just always hitting the ball. It's not always about scoring. Sometimes it's getting on base so you can advance your players so somebody else can score. I learned so much teaching those boys. I had one girl too, Cheyenne. She was my first baseman when Daniel wasn't there, and she was my catcher when Brad couldn't catch. I had a great team. We were the misfits of the Little League year for Colorado Springs. Our kids were the rejects that nobody wanted. Our kids went on to be having their coach as the all-star coach because we were the winningest team. And our team won the championship for that division. We beat out all the other teams who decided that their kids were the bigger, the stronger, the better, the more experienced. Our kids were the ones that nobody wanted. They were the baseball player. They were the football player off season. They were the girl that nobody wanted. A lanky kid who couldn't for the life of him until the last game of the whole year hit the ball. And every game, Dustin, just get up there. You know what I've said? Follow the ball through, swing through, do this, do that, and aim for Kansas. Aim for Kansas, Dustin. Dustin, aim for Kansas. And he'd get up and put his heart into it every time. And the very last game of the season, he hit it out into left field and got onto second base. And the bench went wild because Dustin finally hit the dang ball. You should have seen the look on his face as he looked back at his coach and said, it's like, I did it. I did it. A couple months later, I was at a baseball game, minor league baseball game called the Sky Sox. I had my hat on. I was walking around getting hot dogs and sodas for the kids. This boy come up to me from my all-star team and he goes, "Hey coach, how's it going?" I said, "Brad, it's going well. How are you doing? How's school going?" He says, "Great, coach. It's great to see you. Thanks for coaching us." And I walked away with there like my chest being, he called me coach. The guy who had no idea about baseball except for a rule book in his pocket, a baseball, and a big heart to help kids. I got to tell you something. Those kids, I don't know where they're all at today. I know where my son's at, obviously. But the reality of it is that we, as a coach, I was helping them to achieve something. As Toastmasters leaders, you are more than just a leader or a member of a club. You are facilitators of dreams. You are partners with dreamers. Do you realize that? People come to you not because they just want to develop a skill. The skill is something that they use to achieve something else. The skill is something they're using to fulfill something in their heart and in their mind that equates to nothing less than a dream. You are the facilitators of dreams. You are the partners with dreamers.